Stay at home on 9 to 5, raising your babies with joy and pride. A real ass mom, you're a real ass mom. Taking care of business. Ooh, girl, you're resilient. 'Cause you're a real ass mom. A real ass mom.
Welcome to the Real Mama Pod.
I'm your host, Devin.
And I'm your host, Kendra.
We are real moms.
Sharing real experiences. The things people don't
Hey, Mama,
tell you.
hey.
Hey, Mama, hey.
How you doing, friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We have a guest, and I'm super excited about this guest. So if this is your first time listening, I'm your host, Devin.
And I'm your host, Kendra. Welcome.
Welcome to the Real Mama Pod. So back to our guest. We have Kenedria Thurman, also known as Kiki. She is my prophyte. I've known her for a very long time. And as long as I knew her, she's always been about the kids.
Yes.
Like the baby whisperer, the preschool whisperer.
Chris?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
She just always,
yeah.
she always had somebody's kid. And then she was always teaching the kids. So now she's a preschool director at FAMU. And she is just running things. She's
Yeah.
very knowledgeable with conscious discipline. So we'll talk about that a little bit more because some of the things that they're doing is really interesting and it actually works. She's also a godmom of 2 kids that she that she's taking care of.
Yeah.
So her story is very unique, and I'm just excited for her to be on the podcast and talking about this area of expertise because we do always have questions about how do I pick the right preschool? How do I know this school is good for me and my child? And so now we have a whole expert here.
She's also a research professional.
Yes, and she's been doing this for 20 years. So
Oh, really?
yes, 20 plus now, right? Yeah, it's been a very long time.
We low-key aging ourselves.
I know, so we're not going to
Stop.
throw out
There.
anything else about years and stuff. But welcome to the show.
Welcome, Kiki.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm happy to be here. I love
Thank you for
everything
being here.
about the Real Mama Pod. Like, I stay in y'all's DMs. I'm like, I love,
We appreciate
love
you.
y'all.
We love you right
too.
back. We love you more. How about that? So let's get right into it, Kiki. Let's talk about your journey of how you became this phenomenal educator and also your journey to kind of mamahood because you have a unique story as well. So let's dive into it.
Yes. So thank you for having me. I am Kenedria Thurman and I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. And yes, I've always loved working with children. I wasn't really sure of how that looked outside of being a preschool teacher. Like it's always just been my dream to work in a preschool, to teach children, to work directly with them. And so I started out doing that in 2001 and I really haven't turned back. I had an opportunity to go to Beijing, China. And so I thought I was going to be working with preschool, but that actually started my journey of working with school age children. And as you say, I'm now a quad mom. I have 4 god babies, one in heaven, one that is a new little 4-month-old baby. He's so precious. And then I also have a set of what I like to call twins. They're 8 and 10, Hakeem and Empress, and they live with me. And so we've been on this journey of my home life where I've been like kind of merging what I do at work to what I do at home. I started when they were 2 and 4, and now I'm into that school age range. So I'm kind of like out of my wheelhouse. Preschool is where I want it to be. So I need some help and some advice on that age group, please.
Hey, that's a unique age, too.
Yeah,
Like I feel like each age group has its own challenge.
absolutely.
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 That was so good. We're so happy to have you. So let's get right into Q&A.
Sure.
Thank you for introducing yourself. But when did you first fall in love with preschool teaching? How did you know this was a job for you? And what do you enjoy most about your job?
So, I'm the oldest of 15 grandchildren. And so naturally, I was always the big kid around the little kids. So I think that's really where my love started. My first cousins, and I think that what happened was when I had the opportunity to work, I sought out things that involved children. So, like, I would like, maybe watch some kids somewhere while we were at a function, and nobody was paying me for it. I was just doing it, and we were having a good time. And so then, my first job was a preschool teacher, and everybody at this particular job moved up and went into like the older age groups, like they followed their kids. And I always stayed with the
Right.
preschoolers, and people were like, she's a preschool person. And I think that's where it really cemented in my mind because I was studying early childhood education at FAMU, but I
Mhm.
also wasn't really sure where my height was. At the time, I thought it was to own my own preschool. And so when I started working in childcare and working in preschool, I'm like, I actually like being around the children. So
Mhm.
that was probably, mm, I would say, a 1995 love story. Like around fifth grade is probably when I fell in love with preschool. My first
Mhm.
cousins. Yeah.
Wow. That's usually the introduction. It's like you get stuck watching your older cousin's kids or your
Absolutely.
auntie kids, and then you the babysitter.
Or your mama's kids
Exactly.
and
They
my
like
kids.
come over,
Right.
but mostly they just want you
Your
to
mama's
entertain their
kids.
kids. I'm like, I should be
Right.
getting compensated for this.
Oh,
Right.
girl, please.
Say, I'll pay you no mind.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hey, right.
Ain't right at all. I wrote
Oh,
up this whole
Messed
proposal and
up.
everything of how she should pay me. And she was like, yeah, I'll pay you no mind.
not a proposal. That's
I
funny.
have rates
That's
and
messed
all.
up. You had a
So
business
Kiki,
plan.
with that's a good way to look at it. Like, pay me my worth. Shoot. Okay, so Kiki, when you think about, I guess, your career,
Hmm.
and giving moms and dads or and parents in general feedback on how they should go about selecting the right preschool. Like, what are some things they should be mindful of? What should they research on before selecting a program? Like, what helps them select a quality school for their kids?
Absolutely. I think it's important to realize that preschool is a place where you're supposed to go and prepare for school. And so that might look different
Mm.
for different children. Like some children can, be inspired in an open-ended play-based program, and they can still
Mhm.
develop and grow in a way that builds school readiness. And other children might need a more rigorous academic program where they're learning more concepts on a regular basis and showing data and outputs. So I think for me, when I'm looking for the quality in our preschool and comparing it to other quality preschools that I've visited or been to, I think it's about how you feel when you walk in. During this time,
Mm.
we were not doing a whole lot of tours and allowing families to come into our center. So they couldn't really feel the inner vibe. And so we're just kind of getting back to that. But what we did in the interim and what I hope that we will continue to do is to make you feel warm when you're on the phone. Right. So even if you're calling the school and you're just asking questions and you want to know, you know, what their rates are, if you want to know what their ratios are, like how do they communicate from beginning to end? Because that's going to be your experience as a parent and your experience matters.
Mm.
But then on the child side, I think that it's important to look at how they engage with the environment. When they first visit the center or on their first day of preschool and they're in the classroom, are they allowed to kind of express themselves, find something that they like? Are they drawn to anything in the center? And so if this is like a baby, an infant or a toddler, someone who's young, just look at how receptive they are to the environment. Do they cling to you? Or are they kind of interested in what's there? That kind of gives you a feel of what would be quality for you because it's how you feel on the inside and it's going to
Hmm.
look different. Quality is measured in so many different ways in the United States. I've definitely seen that. But I also believe that it's about that gut feeling of this is right for me and my family, and this is right for my child, and this is the
Hmm.
pathway kind of that I want to put them on.
Yeah, and right for your pockets too, because
Right for
I
your
remember
pockets because
us
we
like
expensive.
right for your pockets. Like when we were shopping for preschools for Eli, there was a Montessori school that we saw and we really liked it, but they were like breaking the bank, and we're like, we cannot afford this. But we
Yeah.
ended up finding a school that was much smaller A lot, if it's a Spanish immersion school, so all his teachers are brown women. The owner is a black woman. The assistant director is a black woman. So he was able to, or he is able to be around people who resemble or look like him, and also pick up a second language. And it just felt like home. Like the teachers have older kids, so they're like, it's like this grandmother feel, but they also have younger teachers there to just kind of balance things out because the kids do try like the older women, but
Yeah,
it's a perfectly balanced school. It's like you, it feels like home. So that feeling walking into that space, and Eli, as soon as he walked in the room, he was like, oh my gosh, I want to explore, I want to touch this, I want to do that. So it felt good knowing that he was interested and curious in the space that he was going to occupy. So that is important, Kiki.
absolutely.
So money
Yeah.
matters and all everything else you just
And
shared.
there's
But money
also
first.
Yeah.
resources out there if you need help financially. Like there are programs that will help support you in the cost of childcare. You just kind of have to look in your area. Like
Mhm.
for example, in Leon County, we have the Early Learning Coalition, and that's primarily for families who have low income, but that supports children being able to start preschool. So I think cost is important, but I think parents who don't have the budget, like don't let that stop you from giving your child that experience. Research and find those dollars that are out
Mhm.
there. At the university, we have a grant program where if you're a student, you can help get the cost of childcare covered while you're taking classes. So maybe you want to go back and get a second degree, or you're pursuing your first degree. You know, this is an opportunity for you to give your child that experience. So yes, cost is a big thing, but also don't be discouraged. There's some help out there to give your child the experience they need.
Yeah. If you're a Georgia mom, there we have a program here called CAPS. It's Child and Parent Services, and they provide kids with scholarships to attend preschools who are also enrolled as a CAPS provider, essentially. So there
Wow.
are local resources, state resources. So if you are a mama who needs support with funding preschool for your kids, check into your state resources because I'm sure they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're a military spouse, there are resources for us as well. Something called Child Care Aware, and so they actually pay a portion of your daycare costs as well. So it makes it really affordable for your child to attend these schools that you want them to. Now there are some regulations around it. The child care on base has to be full in order for your child to attend those schools, but 9 times out of 10 they're full. So you get to go to the schools you want to, because a lot of time service members get priority of those schools on post. So speaking of parents, have you ever had a difficult parent? And if so, how did you deal with that situation? How did you calm them down? Did they return back to your school? Like, what did that look like? I'm always interested to know that.
Well, I have been a director now since 2014. And so I've definitely had my fair share of difficult parents. But I think going back to that initial, like, is this the right relationship, is where it ultimately came down to. Like, some parents give you a hard time because they know that you're capable of providing this level of service, and they're pushing you to meet the standard, to meet their expectations. You're taking their money, give them what they're asking for. So I've had that. And then I've also had those who are kind of like, I'm not really sure that you want to be here no matter what we do. So, let's kind of see how we can end this amicably. And so in that situation, maybe they didn't return. But in other situations, I think we've been able to kind of work through what this is really about when they're being difficult. And I think the relationship that administration has with families is very important. I've had my fair share of mistakes where I've had to learn and grow, because I started out, I don't even remember how old I was when I was in 2014 when I became a director. It was such like everything's happening, right? And so you have a lot of different families that came through this time period where I'm like, I don't really know what to do in this situation, but I'm gonna lean on relationship and I'm gonna say, let me listen and let me hear you out. And so building that relationship as an administrator with families definitely helps with difficult situations. But then also just know that everybody's not there to give you a hard time. Like some parents are
Right.
really just, they don't have the skills to say, I want this for my child. And so they come off, from an emotional state or a survival state, which is what we talk about in conscious discipline. So another one of our approaches has been to expose our families to conscious discipline, to talk to them about calming down. So not necessarily me calming them down, but giving them the strategies, the tools, and access to the information so that they can realize I'm coming on a little strong right now. I'm going off on this teacher. I'm going off on this administrator. Let me pull this back and just really communicate my needs. And so we've pretty well managed things like that, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
Okay. So before we go into our next question, what is conscious parenting? Tell us about that and what that looks like.
Oh, yeah, it's conscious discipline. So conscious
Okay.
discipline, yeah, it's a social emotional approach, right?
Mhm.
So it's basically understanding that adults have the power to then dictate what the environment or situation could be because children learn from us, right? And so we co-regulate them. And so the energy in which we bring into the space, right? The power in which we invoke allows us to be able to navigate situations and teach children skills. So when something happens, instead of us reacting to it, we respond and teach them what we know is missing so that they have an opportunity to learn and grow in that social and emotional space, the same way that we do with teaching math or teaching reading. It's really just understanding that they're learning and growing. This is the first time you've ever told them no about this thing. So they're falling out and they seem irrational, but really the energy you bring to it, the way you respond, is conscious discipline. It's the thoughts and the mindset that you have towards the child and towards those situations. It's language that you use. It's phrasing things in a way that is brain based. And so for those out there in the science field, it's all based in neuroscience. It's brain research. It is what empowers my mind. I enjoy learning about conscious discipline because it's so amazing how this brain organ really works, right? And we all have one, but the way that it works and the basic functions of it really allow us to have better relationships with people. And it especially helps us to understand where children are because their brain is developing so rapidly in those preschool years. So if we speak to the brain, that's really how we can teach them the best way that they need to learn. But each one of their brains is wiring up in a different way. So we kind of got to
Yeah.
take it slow and understand who they are, which is why I can't say this is what quality is for your child because you need to assess that for your child, for their brain, for their
Right.
experience. So
So
that's
Kiki, let
conscious.
me ask you this. Yeah, so when you talk about conscious discipline and
Yeah.
you look at a kid who may be having a tough day in your preschool, can you give us an example of how you would use conscious discipline to support this baby who's having a rough day?
Yeah. Give me an age.
Three.
4.
Okay.
Okay, no. Let's go 3.
Yeah,
Let's go
three.
3. Let's go 3.
Oh, three-nagers. You
A
gave me a tough
3-year-old.
one. I'm still learning and
Yes.
growing with the
Yeah.
3-year-old.
Yes.
Woo.
Yes.
Because 3-year-olds, so just understanding their mind really quickly, right? Like a 3-year-old is verbally strong in a typically developing child, but either way, like personality is emerging into 4, right? So they're starting to figure things out. They want cause and effect. They're testing things even though they know it to be a fact. They're asking, a lot of why questions and peeking onto that developmental level of how does this all really work, this thing
Mhm.
called life. And so if a 3-year-old is having an upset, the first thing I'm going to do is try to meet them where they're strongest. And that's probably in their emotional state where they've developed that language, that sense of like, I am also a part of a we, and there's a separation here. So I would go, your face is going like this. You seem frustrated. You were hoping that we didn't have apples today. You didn't know what else to do, so you picked up the apples and you threw them on the floor. Yeah, that's hard. I get that. I get that. So here's what we can do. We can pick up the apples and put them in the trash can, or you can pick up the apples and hand them to me. How do you want to help? And giving them that choice, giving them that power, bringing them back up. And then we can talk about, whatever else might be going on, because sometimes they kind of shut down at that age and they don't really want to talk once you engage them in the middle of a conflict. Or they get all whiny and start crying because they also have had a lot of experience with their survival state. So they start acting more like a baby, right? They ball up, they curl up, and now you really can't communicate. I would just hold. I'd stop talking. I'd just hold, and I'd hold space for that upset. And once they come out of it, then we can talk about picking up the apples. So
I like that.
Hey y'all. So y'all know when we find out something, we like to share, right?
Yes.
So we are podcasters. I won't say we vets in the game, but we're not super new, and we're always learning about new things to enhance our audio, our video, and we came across Riverside.
Yes, we were introduced to this platform from a fellow podcaster, and we were previously using a platform that we thought was good, but it was just okay. The outcome was just okay. So we were introduced to this platform, and we have thoroughly enjoyed Riverside.
Yes, absolutely. The audio is much clearer. It doesn't give you that like, oh, I'm on a virtual recording. Yeah. It's pretty relative easy to use, especially for us. If we can work it, anybody can work it. And then it also uses AI to help you like edit your videos and give you magic tools and give you little captions you can create on Instagram and social media. So it's really helpful, and we highly recommend it.
Yeah. So check out Riverside if you're in the podcast world, or even if you are in the virtual world with classes or conferences, any sorts of virtual platforms. Riverside is a great tool to put in your pocket.
So check the link in our bio.
Bye.
Bye.
Approach. How do you want to help?
Put the responsibility back on them.
Yeah.
Right. And that is really, really good. I'm gonna try that with these kids that I have.
How do you want
to help? Drew will be like, I don't.
Yeah, Loki said the same. I don't want to help, mommy.
I don't want to help. We're working on that. So going back to some pros and cons of preschool, right? Because some people homeschool, some people allow their children to go to preschool because they are working moms or working parents or whatever the case may be. So what are some pros and cons? I know a con for me personally is like the daycare germs, right? Especially that first year and the kids coming home sick like every other day, and I'm like, I still got to pay every home with me.
Yep.
Every day.
We don't need that shit.
So let's talk about that. Let's dive into that. Some pros and cons of preschool.
Absolutely. And so, just as you stated, it is a germ environment, right? And so, that's another thing going back to selecting it. What does it smell like when you walk in there, right?
Yeah.
Does it smell like somebody just cleaned? Is it overpowering with bleach? Like, we want to be mindful of that too. Like, it should smell like a place where they're cleaning it regularly, but you also are not overwhelmed by any fumes or things of that nature, because that's dangerous. And so, for us as teachers and professionals, we get sick too, right? Their germs are our germs. We're with them like 8-9 hours a day, in most cases for preschool. And so we're catching what they're catching. And so that's definitely a con. Another con I would say probably is not choosing the right place. Like trying a preschool, paying your money, not really liking it, and just having a struggle of an experience. For me, I would like to shift more to what the pros are, right? The pros are your child is going to be given the opportunity to be prepared for school and school readiness. We want that, right? We want our scholars to be amazing. And the only way to do that is to really give them those experiences. And preschool doesn't have to be a facility or a child care. It can be a mom group. It can be, weekly play dates, giving them that social experience, but really focusing on their development and what they need. I don't mean like taking them to the park and you sit on the bench and have fun and they just play, but like, how are they playing? Are they playing according to their developmental level? Are they getting those challenges? Are they being stimulated? And so that's the ultimate pro for preschool. But when you talk about like a childcare facility, those have the pros of more support Typically, childcare facilities have administrators. They also have resources. They also have related services that can come in. And so you kind of get this whole child approach. You can even find places that serve meals. So that's definitely budget friendly because once you pay for childcare, you're not packing lunches and snacks every day. Now, there are some centers who will have you pay sky high prices and they want you to send food too. And that's hard because maybe they don't have it in the budget to pay for food, but I think a place that really wants to care for children should help parents in that area because that's a hard area to feed children 3 times a day. I'm learning that as a parent of an 8 and a 10-year-old, they eat a little bit more than preschoolers, and so therefore I need to sign up for some stamps or something. But
Listen, ain't nothing
anyway,
wrong with stamps
Right. Let me know how I
yeah.
at
can
all.
too.
But
The
another
price of
con.
groceries, Lord Jesus. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Another con is along those lines, right? So some people feed their children some things and schools provide something different. So that may be a con, is like difference in opinion. So at our school, we allow parents to give us what's called a preference. So you can tell us things that are not an allergy, but it's like, I just don't want my child to have that. I don't want them to have this. I don't want them to have that. So you want to have that con kind of be resolved into a pro, where that can be a center or a program that will allow you to say, this is what I want for my child. And they kind of work those needs and concerns in. Because some schools, this is our way and this is the highway, and you cannot do it. I said that wrong. This is our way, or you can take
Oh,
the highway. That's the
right,
right way.
right. I know what you mean.
Because they don't want to change their policies and allow families to do, some of the things that they think is best for their child. So that could be a con, but try to find a center that will turn that into a pro for you.
Mm-hmm.
Another pro, I think, is building those lifelong friendships, right? Like, you get to build a relationship as a family member, like as a mama, as a parent, you get to have relationships with other parents. You get to fellowship, you get to commune. Your child gets to have peers that they can grow up with, and build these lifelong bonds with. And so I think that's an added pro to starting them in school early and building those young relationships.
Okay.
Those are all great pros.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that because Drew really have friends from preschool. They started preschool together and now they're in elementary school, and because of zones and things like that, they go to different schools.
Yeah.
And we still set up play dates with his best friends. Like at least once a month they get together. They're almost the same, like the same birthday, love Spider-Man, like they're the same kid pretty much. But like they really have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They really miss each other. But like, hey, mom, we haven't seen George in a while. Can we call his mom? So and vice versa. She'll be like, oh, George is calling me. can we
Yeah.
can we link up for ice cream or something?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
good that he said that.
yeah, and the kids remember their teachers. Like,
Yeah.
I still have relationships with children that I taught in preschool. Like,
Mhm.
they're in college now and they remember that I was their preschool teacher. Of
Yeah.
course, I cultivated that relationship over time. They don't just remember, random Miss Susie that you had them with for 2 weeks and then change schools. But
Right.
if you help them cultivate that relationship and help them build it, that's also an adult and a mentor in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That helps support your family and builds your village as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. So, do you have an answer of how to combat daycare germs? Is there a secret sauce?
And if you got
Recipe?
it, please share the recipe.
Listen, I wish I had the secret sauce for that, but it looks like a grocery receipt of elderberry, ginger, and lemon.
Maybe some
That's for
lemon and
sure a
honey.
staple.
Sure.
Yes, got to get some honey. But also really teaching your children like some basic germ skills early on. When we're at home, we tend to let people eat off each other's plate, drink out of each other's cups. They're learning and developing about how society works. And so they don't really know the difference between home and school yet. So if there's not any boundaries at home, then I'm not really following boundaries at school. And a lot of the times, germs are shared because they're shared items. They're picking up the same toy, they're passing it. But if a child puts it in their mouth and they don't know, that that's not something to go in their mouth, the preschool has to step in and provide that intervention. You need to be pulling that toy out of play, and it needs to be going into a bleach water bin, and it needs to be sanitized so that you can put it back in the environment and they're not sharing germs in that way. So It's twofold. Teach your children, some basic things at home before you send them to school, and then also reinforce it. One of the things that I really don't understand, and I keep seeing it a lot, like adults cough in their hands.
Yeah.
And so we're teaching children to cough like this, but I'll be around educators and they're coughing in their hand. And I'm like, this is why the kids are having a hard time. And this is why daycare germs exist, because it's not really like a practice what you preach type thing. Like we've got to actually model this for them on a consistent basis, washing our hands very well, and then not putting things in our mouths. Like hand, foot, and mouth,
My son
y'all.
has had it. It's
And I'm telling you, and are you not like, what is this?
it's yucky.
It's yucky. And it's not those babies' fault. And they're the ones suffering. And all that it is a bunch of cross contamination. So we got to put these preventative measures in place to support it at home and at school, because once it gets in the school, it spreads to everybody so quickly. And it's really hard to identify who caused it because they're all coming in contact. And we want them in close, intimate environments. They're young, they need that. But at the same time, we have to protect them by teaching them and then also modeling. Um, and check with your school. Ask them how often they sanitize toys. Ask them how often they change things out. Become familiar with it, because that'll help you also know, this may be something I need to speak up about, or this may be something, that doesn't work for me because they don't seem to be cleaning the environment frequently enough.
Yeah, that was really good. And I guess it just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
It really does. It comes with the territory, and it gets better with time. So if we have a
Yeah,
mama listening who baby is always sick, like I get it. That first
Yeah.
year is
It is
disrespectful.
hell.
But
it
knock on
is.
wood, okay?
So,
'Cause so far we're in the clear, okay? And this is a
Yeah,
mama who baby was home every week. I'm at urgent care every week trying to figure out what's wrong and all this other stuff. But they said it's very common for your child to get sick
yes,
anywhere from 16 to 24 times in one year if they attend
I feel
school
like
or
Eli was
daycare.
over the
It was over
24.
the 24 for me.
It
absolutely.
was
So,
over 24.
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you
We've
mentioned
had
the
everything that could come
one-year-olds.
out.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you, Kendra.
No, go
No, no,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the 1-year-olds are so common to get sick because that's the age where they're starting to really teeth and really explore their environment. So they're putting more things in their mouth, and their body is really just determining, okay, is this okay or is this not okay? So it seems like they're really, 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 really sick, but this is building their immune system. And so it's normal for them to be absent from school. And so we kind of know that, and we try to let our parents know we understand that. If there's any
Right.
hospitalization, we do allow them to not pay child care because that's
Oh,
already a burden. So if there's any hospitalization, you can just show us that and we will definitely waive that because it's already a burden, right?
right.
And we know that it's common, so we don't want to, kind of add to that. So talk to your
Can
school if you know that your child has been having these moments and just say, hey, I want to enroll in the school. I want to be here, but do you have a part-time basis or something that I can modify my tuition while we go through this critical period? Because these ear infections keep coming back and forth. This fever keeps coming back and
hmm
forth, but the doctor says they're okay. So just talk to them about that.
That's good. A good model. I did, and they told me no. So,
Eli's
so
school
that
did
we lose
give
that spot.
us
Yeah,
that
you got lucky.
the first month he started school, he was out for maybe 3 of those 4 weeks because he was sick, and they waived our tuition, most of it, for that month because he was out. And we
Yeah,
didn't ask for it, or they just gave it to us because they understood. Like they know.
So
yeah,
let's go into since we're talking about toddlers and especially specifically 1 year olds, biting and hitting. Let's touch on that for a little bit because that's very common, and I know sometimes parents get overwhelmed by that and don't necessarily realize that that is age appropriate behavior.
yeah,
And so, I know a kid who got kicked out of daycare for biting, and I was just like, I don't
yeah,
know if that was a good space for you, but you're the expert, so let's
yeah.
tap on that a little bit.
Okay. So I think what centers try to provide is a place where families can feel safe. And if your child comes home with a bite mark or they're hurt by another child, that's a cause for concern. Like, is my child safe? And so, with that being said, I understand the measures, but I definitely disagree with the policy because it is very much so age appropriate, excuse me, for toddlers to bite. And some of the reasons why is because pretty much everything that babies do is oral at first, right? And so it's like my way to communicate to the world. Like, you feed me, I cry, now you know to change me. If I want to know how something looks, I taste it. Babies are weird like that. They put everything in their mouth. So when you have a toddler who's been used to using their mouth a lot and they get frustrated, right? They start being overcome with emotion. They have more strength. They're in more social environments. Biting is sometimes a way to communicate, hey, you got too close. Hey, that's my toy. I didn't have the words to say it, so I'm going to just give you this little nip so don't touch that, my C. And so it is very developmentally appropriate. And the more that society really understands that about young children, we'll start helping families with it and be more proactive and put preventative measures because they kind of give you some kind of an indication that they're upset and they're about to bite. Or they've given you like some other indicators, like their toys have teeth marks in them, like they're chewing on things in the environment. They are very heavily reliant on a pacifier. That also sometimes contributes to the oral biting. Why? Because they're used to having something in their mouth. And so it's really something that I don't think that preschool should continue to ostracize children and families for, rather understand it developmentally and really look at ways to prevent it. With that being said, hitting, you also mentioned. So when they're starting to develop, their hands are they're learning how to use their muscles. And so they move kind of weird, right? And so babies, they're doing this and they're not trying to hit you. They're like saying, I want that, or they're pointing at that, right? And so as that continues to develop, adults tend to, and I know some people are going to be like, I don't agree with this. Please don't come at me, at my head. But we tend to interpret that as hitting, right? And so we're meaning makers for children. We make meaning of what they're doing. And so the first time that your child does that, if you say, don't hit mama, don't be hitting me in my face, instead of, oh, you wanted to see my earring. You were trying to see my earring, right? And just giving them understanding for that rather than labeling it as hitting early on, then we tend not to get into this relationship where now you got to get pop. Because a lot of people are popping at home and then they go to preschool and they're popping. And it's like, oh, well, I don't spank my child. Yeah, but you pop every now and again because we can tell because they popping the baby dolls, right? And they're saying, lay down, we know. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? We're not judging it. What we're saying is the behaviors that they experience at home, they're going to bring them to school. And sometimes hitting and biting is happening, but it's literally because that is what has been downloaded or that is what they naturally are doing from their survival state. And we just have to understand it and be responsive to it rather than punishing it, so much with the hitting. Now, if you have aggressive hitting, children who are acting out of aggression, like doing balled fists and hitting, there is a cause for concern. And I would encourage you to talk to the child's teacher, have a meeting, see if you could bring in a resource if you don't know where this behavior is coming from, because that could be an indicator of something else that we need to look at. So not all hitting is unintentional. Some hitting, may look very aggressive. It may be very overt behavior. And in that case, you need to have a conference and you need to bring in some resources if you all can't come up with some solutions.
And that was a really good response to that question because I was definitely if the baby is like waving their hand, I'm like, wait, are you trying to hit me? But I like the way you phrase that. Like you're trying to grab something or you're curious about something, and I like the way you put that, Kiki, because that was not the way I was thinking.
Oh.
So go ahead. You said it's true?
Yeah, it's just true that that's just how our brain works. Like, we make meaning of things. We don't intend to. Like, you weren't trying to make your child a hitter by saying that. You were just like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like when somebody
Mm-hmm.
swings at you, that looks like a hit. That's a normal thought. And so
Mm-hmm.
what happens in so many other areas too, like with tantrums or falling out, we make meaning of what that is or what that means. And sometimes we're kind of a little off track with it. And therefore it persists because we're rather than working with it, we're resisting it and saying, "You're not gonna do that. Don't do that. No, you're not." And it's like, actually, I don't know any other way to let you know that I really, really want that cereal right now. I
Right.
don't know any
Yeah.
words to use, so
Right.
this is the skill I have. So here we go. And cue floor.
That was good. That was good. That was really insightful. So, last question: are you opening up your own school?
Oh,
When's it coming?
Besh, listen,
You need one, and it needs to
I
be a
have
franchise at this
enjoyed.
point.
You're right. Don't bring it up here to Atlanta.
Right, right. I really had that as my dream initially. I wanted to own the world's largest and most productive daycare. And as you know, I don't really like the term daycare. Days take care of themselves. At a minimum, we're taking care of children, unless they Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's their name. We are right with that. But I believe that owning something that large is no longer where my dream is. My dream is more so about the on the ground impact. Like I want to be available to reach out to those people who have their centers, right? And help them kind of build those relationships with their families and strengthen their relationships that they provide for children. I don't know that I really want to do the management of people. It's not really my thing. Like I might buy one and then let somebody else have it. I do not think that I want to do it anymore. And it goes back to that difficult parent question.
Mhm.
It's not about the parents, it's not about the children. If that were my sole reason, I would do it today. It's about the industry and people really understanding what it is that we do. Like early educators are fighting so hard for people to understand that we're not just babysitters. Like we're literally taking care of children at the most critical period of their brain development, the brain that they're going to have for the rest of their lives. We pay people like they don't deserve to have a job. Like it's such minuscule pay, and then families are forced to pay so much. So that often strains relationships or messes up the expectations. So it's a really difficult industry to be a business owner in. And so I commend all that choose to do ownership because I know that you are fighting every day to take care of your children, to make your families happy, and also to take care of your employees while hoping that you bring home an income because it's not a money making industry. And so if I become rich and I get enough resources, I'm going to have a preschool and you're not going to have to pay for it. And people are going to get paid because that's the only thing that will hold me back from owning it. It's just, it's a difficult business. It's a difficult industry because of the lack of understanding and the lack of emphasis that we kind of put on this critical field.
Yeah. I've worked at a preschool when I was in graduate school, and it is a lot. And I was getting
Yeah.
paid like a graduate student. So that means I'm getting paid less than the people who actually work here. It's a lot of work, mentally, physically, emotionally. I would go into that school, happy to see the kids, of course, but they would kick my ass
Yes.
every single day.
Yes.
I was so tired and exhausted by the time I got home. Like, who's gonna do schoolwork after being at that school all day? So it's a lot. I have so much love and empathy for preschool educators because it takes a physical and mental toll on you every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you were
Every
talking
single
about the
day.
differences in age groups in childcare workers, right? So you want to have a balance like you found at Eli's school where you have younger people, older people, but older people typically have families. So if as a
Mm-hmm.
college student you're going home exhausted, imagine if you have children at home to take care of.
Right.
That's where my
Girl.
faith really got tested when I literally was coming home to little kids every day. And I was like, oh, have mercy, Father. I
Right.
needed
Mm-hmm.
conscious discipline so much because I was responsible for that continual brain development at home, and baby, my brain was done. Okay, I didn't want to see nothing but a bed and maybe Scandal. but I had to learn how to balance that. And so that's funny. I did not know that you used to work in childcare. That's so cool, Kendra.
Yeah, it's while I was in Missouri. It was a child research development program at Mizzou, and my
Wonderful.
program was human development and family science. So that was a part of my graduate, I guess, it wasn't an internship, but I had to work in that research lab. I was doing data collection and working in the preschool. So it was
Wow.
just it was a lot. I did
Yeah.
that for almost 2 years. When I got pregnant, I was like, no, I am not being pregnant and working in that school. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
had my
lot.
fair share. I worked at FAMU's daycare for what is it called? Student something. When they
I
pay
don't know.
you,
Uh,
student. I
ooh,
forgot what it's called.
what?
The
See,
program,
Work
but
I know what you're
study.
talking about.
yeah,
Work
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 study.
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 That's what it
Yep,
is.
I worked there, and it was one little girl. I would never forget her. She kicked my hiney, and then she's probably grown now, has to be. And then I also worked in high school at a daycare preschool, and so I would do the after school program with the bigger kids. But during the summer, I actually like had my own class and stuff like that. And it's funny, I'm a school psychologist now because one of my students, he was on the spectrum. I didn't know what that was back then.
Right.
But mom was very concerned. He had all these behaviors, all these stimming behaviors. I worked really hard with him that summer. He was nonverbal, and his first words was "Bye, Miss Devon," and I would never
Oh.
forget that. And I think about him all the time. Like I don't know where he is now, but um, it's funny. My line of work ended up being a school psychologist, and I didn't even know what I was doing back then. But I something on my heart just really put little Tyler,
I bet.
and I
That's so
worked with
sweet.
everybody. Nobody wanted to work with Tyler because he was rough, he was hard. But by the end of the summer, he said bye, Miss Devon, and then his mom got resources, and he ended up going to a different school that provided more resources for him. So
I mean, you're
That
doing the
is
work you're
so
supposed to.
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. I just really
Best when we
reflected
get
and thought about
together, I
that.
gotta tell you a story about a little boy.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Oh, I'm gonna remember you and Tyler.
So, okay, all that daycare talk and babies and preschoolers biting and hitting, we gotta,
Germs.
we need a
We
drink.
need a drink, right?
Oh, drinking from this juice.
So today's Mama Juice is, of course, inspired by Kiki and the line of work that she's in and the little ones that she supports. This drink is called the Wiggle Worm. Because if you are or have been around preschool age kids, you know that they can't sit still. It doesn't matter what's going on in life, they cannot sit still. They're always wiggling, always moving. It's like sit down somewhere. But that's just not how they
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 won't.
process things.
They won't.
Conscious discipline.
Right. I have to be mindful of this. So what the Wiggle Worm has, this is the cocktail version. This is a sweet drink because, it makes sense, right?
Energy.
You need energy. So it has 2 ounces of rum. It has an ounce of fresh lemon juice, an ounce of fresh lime juice, 1.5 ounces of pineapple juice, an ounce of simple syrup, and you top it with grenadine. If you want to get real festive, you can put some gummy worms on top. That is the Wiggle Worm cocktail. And if you are interested in the mocktail version, all you have to do is remove the rum.
Love it.
And it's the Wiggle Worm.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, so if this is your first time listening, we have another segment called Mama's Corner. And so, Mama's Corner, we're a little bit reflective, or our listeners will write in a question and we'll kind of ask our guests, and then they will answer the question and we will answer the question as well. So, we have someone who wrote in about daycare help. So, it says, hey, my baby is starting preschool after being home after 16 months. How can I prepare? Help! All caps.
The baby, say that again. The baby.
Baby is starting daycare after being home for 16 months.
Ooh, I was
That's
that
you.
mama.
18 months, right?
Yeah, Eli started at 18 months. But let's let Kiki respond to that question first.
Gotta go first. Okay.
Cause you're the professional. The me.
I would say so this parent is saying that their child is 16 months old.
And they're
Okay.
going to daycare for the first time.
Got it. So first times can be really, really hard, right? And so if there is any way possible for you to be able to go by and kind of do a sit in and be available for those hard moments, I think that would be a really great way to start transitioning. You are that child's first person, right? And so they've known you, you've known their responses, you've known their cues. And this is no shade or no disrespect to childcare providers or preschools, but families really need to be empowered to be the experts on their children because they're with them, especially when they've been home throughout that first year of life. And so having them build a partnership where they can kind of come in, even if it's only for like 15 minutes, right before I pick up, instead of just grabbing my child and leaving, I can stick around and hang out for a little bit, see how they play, see how they interact, or maybe stay a few minutes when I'm doing arrival. Some schools want you to just drop off and go, but really just try to ask for that kind of grace when it's your first time coming into a school. Another suggestion that I would have is find out the routine and try to model that routine at home on the weekends so that you can be consistent. That can be them providing you with the daily schedule of the classroom, or they can have some type of communication book where they're writing things down, sharing with you, how they're eating, how they're sleeping, how they're playing throughout the day. And the last thing I would say for a new mom helping to get ready would be a comfort item. Find out if the school will allow the child to bring in something that they love to have at home or something that reminds them of you. It could be a picture of you. It could be a picture of your family, something that you can put in the classroom to allow the child to feel comforted when those big moments of sadness. And for the family themselves, for the mama who wrote this, breathe, baby. You got this. You've chosen the school that you want your child to go to. You feel good about it. And so just take those deep breaths and remember that your state dictates their state. So if you're anxious about them going, they're going to feel your anxiety and they're going to take that into the classroom. So if you want them to go in and have a great day, wish them well, breathe for them, and be available if they need you. But don't hover, don't helicopter. Just give them a little bit of space and see if he can or she can make that transition.
Love that. Love that. The only thing I would probably add, because that was so thorough, is maybe do a half a day before you do that full day, or maybe do a few half a days, or maybe the first day you do 3 hours and then you make it longer to after nap, and then, something like that, just so they can kind of ease their way into it, because it's going to be new for them as well. And so they can get used to that transition. That would be my only addition.
You and Kiki, well, really Kiki, she gave you too, but Kiki, the one thing I was going to say was asking for the schedule, just so that you can transition your kid efficiently, and they're comfortable with, they at least have some idea into the new structure that they're being essentially forced into.
Mm-hmm.
So just again, like Kiki said, breathe. Do those half days, because we did that as well, where we essentially dropped him off, and we did hang around a little bit just to kind of get an idea and see how he would adjust. But that was a really good tip that we've gotten before too, and it helped. So all of this is good feedback, mama. You're going to be fine. Your baby's going to be fine. And you're going to be looking forward to the times where you have to drop them off.
I know. And then you're going to be like, daycare, come get your babies, because you just get used to them being at school.
Yeah.
And when they close down and you got to be with them all day,
they'll remind you.
Quickly reminded that daycare is very beneficial.
I would also say just engage yourself as much as possible too with the school, its activities, newsletters, like get on the listserv. If they have an app for communication, download it. Anything you can do to involve yourself with whatever's going on in your baby's school, do it, because that will expose you to so much. And it lets baby know that you feel comfortable with them being in that space too.
And lastly, I don't know if you're nursing or not, but start weaning baby off. If you are nursing, I just thought about that, because I do know sometimes when kids are home later, they nurse longer. So if you are nursing, this is me assuming that you are, start weaning baby off of that too, because that might be a difficult transition. That's all I got.
That's a good question.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, mama. Let us know how it goes. You never write us back and let us know if our advice was helpful or not, because you probably already went through it. So maybe reading this late, I don't know. But Kiki, thank you. This is awesome. We can't wait to have you back. This was so
great.
insightful, and I know this is going to be helpful for so many mamas.
Keep
center
doing the work
stage.
you're doing.
Yes.
You are a phenomenal asset to preschool world.
Well, until next time, mamas, have a good night.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.